Professor, what are selective attention, selective distortion, and selective retention?
Good question. Today, I will explain selective attention, selective distortion, and selective retention. When consumers receive stimuli from the external environment, they go through 5 stages of exposure: attention, perception, attitude, and memory in the information processing process, resulting in a response. In detail, typically, when consumers receive stimuli from the external environment, they go through the exposure stage of detecting information through the 5 senses: sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. This is followed by the attention stage, where they show considerable interest, and the perception stage, where they interpret the stimuli in their own way. Selective attention, selective distortion, and selective retention, which I'm going to describe today, occur during the perception stage. Perception refers to the process by which consumers accept external stimuli. What needs to be noted in the perception process is that when consumers accept external stimuli, they do not respond accurately to all external stimuli, but they engage in selective attention, selective distortion, and selective retention. In other words, when external stimuli come, consumers select, interpret, and retain only some of them. The reason for this is that when consumers receive stimuli from the external environment, they cannot react accurately to all of them, intentionally or unconsciously. Instead, they selectively choose, interpret, and retain a portion of the external stimuli based on their own perspectives. These selective attention, selective distortion, and selective retention play a role in causing different responses among consumers, even when exposed to the same stimuli. So, what exactly are selective attention, selective distortion, and selective retention? I will now explain them in detail. Selective attention refers to the phenomenon of paying attention only to certain stimuli among the external stimuli. For example, even if TV commercials are aired, consumers, intentionally or unconsciously, selectively pay attention to the advertisements they want to watch. There is a famous case that illustrates selective attention, known as the invisible gorilla experiment. In 1966, the psychology department at Harvard University conducted a basketball game experiment called 3-on-3. Team A, consisting of 3 members, wore white uniforms, while Team B wore black uniforms, and they played the basketball game. Students who did not participate in the game were given the task of counting the number of passes made by Team A in white uniforms. During the game, a student dressed as a gorilla walked by. After the game, when asked if they saw the gorilla, surprisingly, about half of the students who were counting the passes did not see the gorilla. They were unaware of the gorilla's appearance while counting the passes. This demonstrates that consumers engage in selective attention. Now let's talk about selective distortion. When consumers receive information through selective attention, they don't simply accept it as it is, but subjectively interpret and accept it. This theory is known as selective distortion, which refers to the tendency of individuals to interpret information based on their own biases. There is a famous example of selective distortion involving Coca-Cola and Pepsi. In the 1970s, most people only purchased the well-known brand Coca-Cola and did not buy Pepsi. This is because people tend to blindly trust famous brands. In response, Pepsi conducted an advertising campaign called the Blind Taste Test. They prepared 2 cups without any brand markings, filled 1 cup with Pepsi and the other with Coca-Cola, and had people taste them. When asked which cup tasted better, surprisingly, many people said that Pepsi was more delicious. After this blind taste test was conducted through TV advertisements, Pepsi's market share reportedly increased significantly. This demonstrates the phenomenon of selective distortion. We can observe the halo effect, where high scores are given to famous brands, prestigious families, attractive faces, and so on. Due to the high brand recognition of Coca-Cola, consumers experienced selective distortion. Lastly, let me explain selective retention. Consumers do not remember all the information and stimuli conveyed through selective attention and selective distortion. They tend to selectively remember only the information that aligns with their beliefs, attitudes, or familiar things. This is known as selective retention. We can also widely observe the phenomenon of selective retention in our surroundings. A prime example is the Pareto principle. The Pareto principle is also known as the 80 versus 20 rule. In other words, the Pareto principle states that 80% of a company's revenue comes from 20% of its customers. Therefore, many companies are focusing their marketing on 20% customers, selected out of their total customers. This is a selective retention. The Pareto principle is a theory that has already been statistically verified. For example, if a company's sales are $100 million and the Pareto principle is applied, sales of $80 million will come from the top 20% of customers, and sales of $20 million will come from 80% of regular customers. Converting this to sales per 1% of customers, 1% of top customers purchase $4 million, but 1% of regular customers purchase only $0.25 million. So, we can conclude that top customers purchase 16 times more than regular customers. Therefore, many companies are applying the Pareto principle to a marketing strategy called selective retention. The method of utilizing selective retention is a loyalty rewards program. A loyalty rewards program is a way to select the top 20% of your total customers and focus your marketing efforts on them. Companies provide a variety of services to prevent their top 20% customers from being lost to other companies. Another loyalty rewards program is a way to convert regular customers into loyal customers. Many companies are focusing on creating loyal customers through loyalty reward programs to convert general customers into repeat customers who purchase their products repeatedly. Especially, the cost of converting a regular customer into a repeat customer is much lower than the cost of attracting a new customer. This makes your business more profitable. In this way, the Pareto principle is becoming a powerful tool through the marketing strategy of selective retention. Therefore, when developing marketing plans or strategies, applying theories related to consumers' selective attention, selective distortion, and selective retention will greatly enhance their effectiveness.
Professor, today's lesson explained phenomena that are easily observable in our surroundings, using the terms selective attention, selective distortion, and selective retention. Thank you very much.